When the Reynolds family moved into their new home in the quiet suburb of Brookhaven, Georgia, they believed they were beginning a new chapter filled with peace and possibility. After years of city chaos and a recent traumatic break-in at their old apartment, Claire and Martin Reynolds needed a reset. Their two children, 10-year-old Sarah and 7-year-old Evan, were thrilled by the large backyard nearby park and their cheerful school just 3 blocks away. Claire, a freelance copywriter, worked from home. Martin, a hospital technician, worked night shifts, meaning Claire was often home alone with the kids. But she welcomed the independence. The house itself was a mid-century 2-story with creaky hardwood floors and an attic converted into storage space. The ventilation system ran through the attic and crawl spaces, a detail the family barely noticed. The first month passed peacefully. The neighbors were kind, especially their elderly next-door neighbor, Mrs. DeWitt, who brought cookies and shared stories about the neighborhood. But then, small things started to happen. Subtle things. Claire began to hear faint noises at night, scraping sounds, soft tapping, almost like whispers inside the walls. She chalked it up to old pipes or squirrels in the attic. But the noises persisted. Once, when she was up late working, she swore she heard something metallic slide across the ceiling above her. One night, Sarah burst into Claire's room crying. She said she saw a shadow move in the ceiling vent above her bed. Claire comforted her, convinced it was a nightmare, and promised to have Martin check the vents. But Martin's inspection revealed nothing. No signs of rats, no loose vent covers, no tools or scratch marks. Just dusty ducts and insulation. Still, Claire couldn't shake the unease curling in her gut. The family's peaceful rhythm was disrupted again when Sarah became increasingly withdrawn. She stopped playing with her friends and refused to sleep alone. She began sleepwalking, something she had never done before. Claire found her one night standing in the hallway, staring blankly at the vent above the linen closet. Evan, usually the loud and adventurous sibling, grew unusually quiet. He would cover his ears at night and say, "The walls are whispering again." Claire and Martin took the kids to a therapist, who suggested they were struggling to adjust to the move and the past trauma of the break-in. Claire started researching home ventilation systems. One late night, she crawled into the attic with a flashlight. As she crawled near the vent that led to Sarah's room, she found something chilling, a set of fresh fingerprints in the dust on the vent cover. Her heart pounded. She called Martin, who insisted she probably disturbed the dust herself. Still, he agreed to install a baby monitor in Sarah's room. They set it up to record overnight. What they found the next morning would haunt them. The footage showed something, someone, moving behind the vent. Just a flicker. A hand. A pale shape disappearing into the darkness. They called the police. 2 officers arrived within an hour. Officer Jameson and his partner did a walkthrough, checked the attic and all crawl spaces, and found nothing. The attic was dusty, with no footprints. The duct system, they said, was too narrow for anyone to crawl through. Claire showed them the footage. The officers weren't convinced. They suggested the camera might have glitched. "Do you have a history of sleepwalking?" one of them asked Claire. Martin was growing angry. "Are you saying my wife is imagining this?" Still, they filed a report. The family asked if the house had a history. The police said no, but the records were decades old. "Sometimes old houses make noise," Officer Jameson said. "But we'll do a patrol through the neighborhood tonight, just in case." Claire was not satisfied. That evening, she sat in the dark and listened, really listened. The sounds came again. Not random, not pipes, but deliberate. Crawling, breathing. She grabbed a flashlight and opened the attic again. That's when she saw it. The words "I live here now" scrawled in black marker on a beam near the center vent. She screamed. The next morning, Claire visited Mrs. DeWitt, hoping for some clarity. She described the sounds, the writings, the movement in the vents. Mrs. DeWitt's face fell. She hesitated, then said, "You're not the first ones." She told Claire about the Colsons, a family who had lived in the house 10 years ago. They moved out abruptly one night, left everything behind. Rumors had swirled, something about a stalker, but nothing was confirmed. The house sat empty for years. "Don't stay there if you don't feel safe," Mrs. DeWitt warned. The Colsons were good people, but something in that house changed them. Claire brought this story to Martin, but he remained skeptical. "We're not just going to run. We'll get more cameras, fix the vents, figure it out." But Claire had already made up her mind. Something was living in their walls. Claire set up 3 more hidden cameras, in the attic, Sarah's room, and the hallway. That night, while Martin was at work, she stayed up monitoring the feeds. At 3:08 a.m., something crawled into frame. A man, gaunt, pale, eyes like holes. He was shirtless, covered in grime. He wriggled through the duct, emerging silently into Sarah's room. He crouched beside her bed, watching her sleep. Claire nearly vomited. She called 911, but by the time police arrived, he was gone, vanished back into the vents. The cops finally believed her. This was no ghost. This was a living man. They searched again: attic, ducts, crawl space, roof. Nothing. As if he melted into the walls. That night, Claire, Sarah, and Evan stayed in a hotel. Martin came home from work and joined them. But something strange happened. His phone had 11 missed calls, all from their home number. No one was supposed to be in the house. The police launched a full investigation. They suspected the man had been squatting undetected in the ventilation system for weeks, possibly months. A forensic team combed through the house. In the attic, they found a makeshift nest, blankets, food wrappers, a knife, and a journal. Inside the journal were disturbing entries. I can see them when they sleep. Sarah is the quiet one. She's perfect. She saw me last night. I think she knows. His obsession with Sarah was evident. Police issued an alert, calling the man a dangerous stalker. But no name. No fingerprints matched any in the database. The story hit the local news. The Reynolds family was relocated to a safe house. Martin was furious. We trusted this home. We were supposed to be safe. But safety, they realized, had been an illusion from day one. Despite the relocation, Sarah and Evan struggled with trauma. Sarah stopped speaking altogether. Evan began wetting the bed again. Claire blamed herself. She should have listened to her instincts. She should have trusted Sarah's first cry about the vent. Detectives dug deeper. They found another family across town who had a similar experience, but fled before anything happened. They too had heard voices, whispers, scraping sounds. The case was never pursued. Then came the twist. A gas station clerk recognized the man in the surveillance footage. He had come in frequently, paid in cash, bought only candy and soda. He said he lived in the neighborhood, the clerk said. But the house he pointed to wasn't the Reynolds house. It was Mrs. DeWitt's. Police questioned Mrs. DeWitt. At first, she played the part of a confused old woman. Then her story unraveled. Turns out, she had a son, Malcolm, diagnosed with schizophrenia. He disappeared 5 years ago after escaping a group home. When they showed her the footage, her face turned white. "That's my boy," she whispered. She admitted he had been in the area, that she'd seen him, that she sometimes left food in the woods near the backyard. But she never imagined he'd be in someone's home. Police suspected Mrs. DeWitt helped hide him, but she denied it. "I thought he was just passing through." Malcolm was now classified as armed and dangerous. With police guarding the house and security systems installed, the Reynolds were allowed to retrieve some belongings. Claire and Martin, flanked by officers, entered the home during daylight. The house was cold, silent. As Claire entered the kitchen, she noticed something new. On the counter, a Polaroid of Sarah, sleeping. The date marked was from the previous night. He had been there. The cops scrambled, but there was no sign of forced entry. No fingerprints. No broken locks. Just that image. Left like a trophy. Claire collapsed into tears. They weren't safe. Not anywhere. Desperate, Martin rigged the house with motion sensors, alarms, and even makeshift traps in the attic. The next night, the alarm tripped at 2:19 a.m. By the time officers arrived, one of the traps had been triggered. A rope snare. And inside it, torn cloth. A scrap of skin. Blood. Malcolm had been caught, but escaped again. But they had DNA now. And with it, they finally confirmed Malcolm DeWitt. Still legally missing. Now a suspect in at least 3 unsolved home invasions. He wasn't just hiding. He was stalking. Living with families. Watching. Waiting. The Reynolds weren't his first. And they wouldn't be his last. With DNA evidence now secured, law enforcement confirmed what Claire and Martin had feared. Malcolm DeWitt was their stalker. A profile was released nationwide. Malcolm was diagnosed with severe paranoid schizophrenia and had escaped from a psychiatric facility 6 years ago. Somehow, he'd learned to live unseen, inside walls, attics, vents. The FBI joined the investigation. Agents believed Malcolm had been living like a phantom tenant, sneaking into homes and hiding for extended periods. The journal found in the Reynolds attic included chilling entries. Timelines of the family's movements, Sarah's school schedule, even grocery lists. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit painted a terrifying picture. Malcolm didn't just hide. He inserted himself silently into family life. Watched, learned, interacted subtly. He may have brushed against your child while she slept, one profiler said. He may have eaten your food, used your shower. Claire threw up at the thought. As investigators interviewed Mrs. DeWitt further, a disturbing pattern emerged. Malcolm's break from reality happened shortly after his father's death, a man known for abusing both him and his mother. Malcolm once spent 4 months hiding in their home attic as a child to avoid beatings. Experts suggested his return to hidden spaces wasn't random. It was psychological comfort. Mrs. DeWitt admitted she feared her son but still loved him. "He's sick," she cried. "But he's still my boy." The press swarmed the neighborhood. Claire refused to speak publicly, but a photo of Sarah's Polaroid leaked to the internet. The case went viral. True crime fans nicknamed Malcolm the Phantom of Brookhaven. But for Claire and Martin, this wasn't entertainment. It was survival. Martin remembered something strange. The first time they saw Malcolm might not have been in the vents. A week before the noises started, they came home one day and found the back door slightly open. Nothing was taken, and they assumed it had unlatched. But now, Martin was certain. That was the night Malcolm slipped inside. Footage from neighbors' security cams confirmed someone crouched near their trash bins the same day. A blurry figure slinking across their lawn. He wasn't just hiding, Martin told police. He was planning this. Studying us. Claire began to spiral. Every creak in the hotel room, every shift in the shadows made her flinch. Malcolm was still out there, and they were his unfinished story. Sarah began speaking again, but only at night. She'd wake up whispering, sometimes giggling, sometimes crying. Claire recorded her sleep talking. What she heard chilled her to the core. "Malcolm said you scream funny. Don't look in the vent. He gets mad. Malcolm said I'm his now." Claire shared the audio with investigators. A forensic psychologist examined the tapes and believed Sarah was repeating things Malcolm whispered while watching her sleep. This wasn't over. It had left a mark on their daughter that no therapy could erase. Despite security, police presence, and national coverage, Malcolm did the unthinkable. He came back. An officer guarding the Reynolds home heard rustling near the roof. When he climbed to investigate, he found a note pinned under a shingle. It read, "You left the door open again." No fingerprints. No witnesses. No sign of how he got there. Claire and Martin were relocated again. This time to a safe house 4 hours away, location unknown to the public. But Malcolm always seemed one step ahead. As the case went viral, true crime forums exploded with theories. Armchair detectives, conspiracy theorists, and internet sleuths flooded the Reynolds with messages. Some offered sympathy. Others accused them of faking it for fame. One even claimed to have seen Malcolm in an abandoned asylum in Tennessee. But one message stood out. A woman in Kentucky claimed she had lived in a home where similar things happened. She swore someone lived in her walls and took pictures of her children. She moved. No police report. No resolution. Now, she wondered, was it Malcolm then, too? News broke of a murder in Alabama. A woman was found strangled in her bedroom. Her daughter, 9 years old, was unharmed but told police. The man from the ceiling did it. Investigators found entry points in the attic. Inside the ducts, the same kind of food wrappers, same Polaroids, same writing on the walls. Malcolm had struck again. Claire collapsed when she heard. She felt both horror and guilt. That could have been us. Martin decided something needed to change. They couldn't run forever. They had to catch him. Working with law enforcement and the FBI, Martin and Claire agreed to a dangerous plan. They would return to their home, with surveillance and agents hidden nearby. They would act as bait. Sarah and Evan stayed safely away with relatives. Claire and Martin pretended to resume life. Grocery runs, laundry, lights on at night. For a week, nothing happened. Then, on night 8, the attic sensor tripped. He was back. As agents moved in, the attic door swung open on its own. Silence. Then, footsteps. Malcolm emerged, wild-eyed, shirtless, filthy. But he wasn't attacking. He walked straight toward Claire. "I just wanted to be part of the family," he whispered. He was subdued and arrested without resistance. In his pockets, photos. Of Sarah. Of Claire. Of them laughing, sleeping, eating. Memories he had stolen. a life he watched but never lived. Malcolm was charged with multiple counts of breaking and entering, stalking, attempted abduction, and suspected homicide in Alabama. He was declared mentally unfit for trial and committed to a high-security psychiatric facility. Claire and Martin sold the house. They moved to another state, changed names, tried to start over again. But the fear never left. And Sarah, now speaking again, still refused to sleep with the lights off. Because every now and then, she swore she heard whispering in the vents. Months passed, and while life resumed on the surface, the emotional wounds ran deep. Claire was diagnosed with PTSD. Loud noises sent her into panic attacks. Martin began having nightmares, dreams where he'd wake up in vents, screaming for air. Sarah slept only with headphones on, drowning out any sounds she couldn't control. They tried therapy, moved into a new house on the opposite side of the state, and enrolled the kids under new names. Yet fear, like Malcolm, had made itself a permanent resident in their lives. Claire began journaling. Her first entry: "He lived in our home. Now he lives in our heads." Just as the Reynolds began to rebuild, another chilling incident surfaced. A family in Oregon reported hearing movement in their walls. A baby monitor recorded whispers. The footage was eerily similar, a pale figure seen briefly inside a vent. But Malcolm was locked away. That's when the FBI considered a horrifying theory. What if someone else was mimicking him? A copycat who saw Malcolm as an icon? The case was reopened under a new classification: vent crawler pattern crimes. And the Reynolds family were no longer just survivors. They were the first known victims of a potential trend. A disturbing discovery came from an unexpected source, an independent cybersecurity investigator. He uncovered a hidden forum on the dark web. Its name: In the Walls. There, users shared photos, stories, and tips on how to live undetected in homes. The site's founder used the handle Phantom1 and frequently referenced Malcolm DeWitt. "Watching is better than living," read one post. "The Reynolds family never even knew I slept above them for weeks." Claire's heart dropped. Was that before Malcolm? Or someone else entirely? Investigators found it unlikely Malcolm was the forum's author. The writing style, digital timestamps, and references suggested it started before he was arrested. Worse yet, posts continued after his detainment. That meant multiple people were out there, inspired by him. Possibly networked. Police reached out to families across the country with similar complaints. Suddenly, dozens of victims emerged. Most had never reported anything. They'd been dismissed, mocked, or ignored. Malcolm wasn't an anomaly. He was a blueprint. One night, Martin returned from a grocery run to find the side door to their safe house slightly ajar. Claire swore she locked it. Nothing was stolen, but when they checked the attic, a horrifying message was scratched into the insulation foam. "One lock doesn't stop me." Police found no fingerprints. Again, no sign of forced entry. Again, they were forced to flee once more. Their lives were a carousel of fear. Sarah began wetting the bed again. Evan refused to sleep in his own room. They were survivors, yes, but more than that, they were targets. The FBI created a dedicated unit, Project Hollow. Its goal was to investigate home invasions involving duct systems, attics, and stealth occupancy. They linked 18 cases across 9 states. Some had video proof. Others only chilling journals left behind. Most were never solved. All had one thing in common. The victims felt watched before they realized they were being lived with. Martin and Claire were brought in to consult. Claire offered her journals. Martin offered blueprints of their old home, showing how easily someone could move unseen. They weren't just telling their story. They were helping write others' endings. At their newest location, undisclosed even to close friends, the family tried to pretend. Pretend it was over. Pretend they were normal. Then one night, Sarah screamed from her bedroom. Claire rushed in and found her daughter pale, trembling. "There was a tap on the window," she said. And someone whispered, "Sarah." The yard was empty. The police found no prints. Again, Claire collapsed. What if he didn't act alone? 3 towns away, a 12-year-old girl went missing. Her bedroom window was open. The screen cut neatly. Her vent cover unscrewed from the inside. The girl was gone without a trace. Inside the duct, detectives found wrappers, candy, soda, and a photo of the Reynolds family. It wasn't Malcolm, but someone knew about them, followed them, obsessed over their case. This was no longer their story. It was a movement. Experts began analyzing the behavior of vent crawlers. "They are not just hiding," one psychiatrist said. They are reclaiming control. In a world that ignores them, they insert themselves quietly. Power through invisibility. They tend to be male, aged 20 to 40, with histories of trauma, institutionalization, or homelessness. Many viewed Malcolm not as a criminal, but as a guide. Copycats were calling themselves shadows, and the Reynolds had unknowingly become their saints and their sacrifice. A package arrived at FBI headquarters. The video showed a man in a mask, voice distorted. He whispered, "You moved again, but I was there first." Behind him, in the frame, boxes from the Reynolds' recent move. The wallpaper matched their latest safe house. He had broken in, filmed, left before they even arrived. The Reynolds were relocated once more. New names, new IDs, but the message was clear. It would never be over. After years of moving, hiding, and living under aliases, Claire made a bold decision. She returned to Brookhaven, not to live, but to confront it all, to face the place where her nightmare began. With Martin by her side and FBI permission, she stepped into the old house one final time. The house had been remodeled. New owners lived there now, unaware of its haunted past. Claire stood in Sarah's old room and stared at the vent. It was silent, but her mind was loud. The past didn't disappear, it waited. The FBI quietly surveyed the home while Claire revisited it. Beneath the foundation, they discovered something no one had noticed before, a narrow tunnel system connected to an old storm drain. This explained how Malcolm had vanished so often. Inside the tunnel, they found remnants of Malcolm's early entries, childlike drawings, old food containers, even a broken camera. Claire held back tears. He had built a kingdom of shadows beneath their home, and he wasn't the only one who had learned the blueprint. Authorities received a breakthrough. A man was arrested in Ohio while hiding in the ceiling of a daycare center. Inside his belongings were news clippings of the Reynolds case and printed copies of Malcolm's journal entries. Under questioning, he broke. "There are more of us," he said. "You can't stop an idea." He called himself Second Shadow, and he claimed to be part of a private online cult, a movement started after the original footage of Malcolm leaked. They didn't want to kill. They wanted to exist in secret, to watch, to become ghosts. In a twist no one expected, Malcolm DeWitt died suddenly from heart failure inside the psychiatric facility. He left behind one final notebook. Inside were sketches of vents, ceiling grates, and diary entries full of delusion and longing. "I was born in the dark. I lived in your warmth. You just didn't see me." He wrote about Sarah like she was his sister, about Claire like she was his mother. The fantasy he created was complete. And in his mind, it was never about harm. It was about belonging. Weeks after Malcolm's death, a viral TikTok trend horrified parents across the country. Teenagers were posting videos crawling into air vents, hiding in closets, and filming themselves whispering through floorboards. The challenge? Be the shadow. Law enforcement scrambled to issue warnings, but the videos spread faster than they could be deleted. Claire watched one in horror as a boy popped out of a ceiling vent above a sleeping sibling. The caption, "She never knew." Malcolm had become a legend. A meme. A day. In Arizona, a family reported hearing laughter from above. When police arrived, they found a 15-year-old boy in the crawl space. He had been hiding there for 5 days, surviving on snacks and watching the family through drilled holes. He told authorities, "I learned it from YouTube. The Reynolds case. I wanted to see what it felt like." He wasn't violent, but he was obsessed. He had a journal. Inside were drawings of Sarah. Drawings traced directly from the leaked Polaroids. Claire finally agreed to a public interview. She sat in front of national cameras and spoke to the world. "This isn't entertainment. It's trauma. It's not mystery. It's our life. We were watched like animals in a cage. We didn't survive for this to become a challenge." Her voice trembled, but she didn't break. The interview went viral, for the right reasons. Claire's raw honesty reignited a public outcry. The video was viewed 19 million times in 3 days. Claire, alongside other families, founded the Silent Wall, a non-profit support group for victims of invasive surveillance and hidden occupancy crimes. The goal, to create legislation and education around interior privacy violations. They lobbied for mandatory duct inspections in new home sales, for criminal databases tracking these unusual trespasses, for schools to teach about boundaries and home safety. It wasn't justice, but it was healing. Now a teenager, Sarah began opening up during therapy. She remembered the man in the vent. I don't think he hated us, she said. I think he loved us. In a broken way. She talked about hearing him cry at night. Whispers like lullabies. He wasn't just watching. He was pretending he was us. When asked if she feared he would return, she looked straight ahead and said, "Someone will, because he taught them how." Claire's family moved one final time. A small home in a rural area, heavily fortified, with no attic vents. One night, Martin was checking the house. He paused in the laundry room. There, beneath the dryer, was a hatch he'd never seen. A door in the floor. He opened it slowly, heart pounding. Just an old crawl space. Empty. But as he reached for the light, he saw something scratched into the wood. Still here. The night may never ends. It only hides, like they did, waiting for the next family, the next vent, the next whisper in the dark. Thank you for watching True Crime Hub. Like, share, and subscribe for more stories that chill to the core.